Welcome to the Dune Over Season 2, Episode 2. I am Dan, with, of course, my co-host Jennifer, and we're joined by Scott. And unfortunately, we have no Syd, we have no V, we have no Cidnya, but you're going to get a great show.
So it's basically the Spice Boys. So because normally it's the Spice Girls and Dan, so it's like the Spice Boys.
If I may, I spent way too much time thinking about this pun to use, and I would offer Boys to Men Tat.
Oh,
ooh,
done. We can all
Boys
literally.
To
And we've come to the end of the computation.
Yeah. And I mean, you could the end of the road video. You could really transpose that to be just on Arrakis, right? Because they're like walking through the desert.
I'll see you on the golden path.
It was meant to be.
We can go home because that's done.
Wow, great show, guys! Good job. High five.
I want to say hi to my friend Bo, who. So Bo, sorry. So I'm just going to air this out there. So my friend Bo today messaged me and was like, I just finished. I wanted to let you know I just finished reading Dune. I'm home today. I'm just about to read Dune Messiah, and I'm like, bitch, we're doing Dune Messiah book club. So Bo, thank you so much for hanging out and come. I know that you know me. I know that you know my zany personality from work. But we're about to bring the zaniness here to Dune. Yeah.
Sorry. I also want to send a little hi to my friend Marcy, who always watches the replay and then gives some critique. She really wanted Jen's cat facts after last week.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I do have another cat fact for you. And this is because I was hanging out yesterday with my friend Bueller. So I'll be on Bueller's show on Monday again.
Another 400 subs?
Yeah, right.
Is he local? Is he local to you?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. And so, I mean, kind of, he's a little out of the way. But anyways, I really went over and hung out with him because his cat, whose name is Nipples, so I got to just hang around and play with his nipples. So get that joke out of the way. But interesting other cat fact, which I told him yesterday, cats don't actually meow for other cats. They meowing is a purely thing that they do for humans. Normally when cats communicate with one another, they chit and chirp to each other. So cats, they meow to humans. They don't actually meow to other cats.
I've heard that chirp because my cat, every time he sees a lizard, starts doing that.
Yep. So whoa. I'm here for the cat facts.
Solid. That's a solid cat fact. I did not know that.
I sent the screen cap to Jen as soon as I got it last time. I was like, that's funny. She'll appreciate this. Yeah. So we are starting at page 125, depending on the book you have the version. I have one of the newer versions. You two are on the older versions. The OG
version with the weird line.
Is it OG?
The designy.
Yeah. That is at least the 10-year-old version.
It's OG if you're in your 30s and are almost 40, like this guy.
Because when I was at Barnes & Noble still, that was the version that we sold. And then there's an older version that has just the bigger picture of that old head on it, of the statue.
Can I just say, speaking of these covers, which I do love, because I love when they're evocative like this with an illustration. Mm-hmm. Growing up, before I read these books, I would look at them. They were everywhere. And I was like, clearly these are popular, but I have no clue what these could possibly be about. Because I would look at them and they're always just creepy people in robes or the weird word dude, obviously.
Yeah.
What is happening?
The God Emperor of Dune cover was the one where I just kept staring at going, what is going on?
What the F? Yeah, exactly.
If you watched, I don't know what episode it was, probably the first episode that I chose violence with the person who did the cover for the new edition of Dune. Because on the illustration of the first cover of Dune, you see someone walking across dunes in a straight line. And it's did you even read the book? You don't walk in a pattern like that in the dunes.
I actually have the shirt that says walk without rhythm.
you walk without rhythm,
Yeah.
and clearly that person is walking with rhythm, and I hope that they got eaten by a sandworm. I also hope the illustrator of that cover gets eaten by a sandworm.
Wow, harsh.
Yeah.
Harsh.
I even
Watch
found
out.
their Twitter. So, if I were to break down this 100 pages we read, it would be Paul, deep thoughts, awkward flirting.
Yes. Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
Oh, and Aaliyah getting into some.
Yeah, that's what I said. That was
Yikes.
some like real
Yikes.
cringy ass shit. Like oof.
Big oof.
Super
Yeah,
oof.
and she's 15 in this.
Yeah, I think we established that last time from the uncomfortable nakedness introduction.
Yeah.
Yes. So Scott and I were talking beforehand. Thanks for stopping in. I appreciate it. Skytail has become the most fascinating character to me
Totally.
in the series so far. Just in his face dancer stuff, like so the first chapter, Edric the Guildsman is basically with Paul in the throne room, I guess we're gonna call it, or stateroom.
Yeah.
And there's this verbal jousting going on, and it's another one of those Stilgar like, why the fuck am I here?
Yeah.
Like
questioning every choice he made up to this point.
Yeah. And Edric, like, it starts with like, is this where your father died? Not a great way to start that conversation.
What an asshole.
And I think that there's some awkwardness too, because he's like, I think that like in his mind, he's kind of thinking, is this something appropriate that I should say? Like I'm trying to break the ice, I guess. And that's the only thing that he could come up with.
I felt like he was trying to unnerve Paul, like get him off his game.
Yeah.
Because there was a little bit of that back and forth between them. And Paul's like, oh yeah, it's the shrine of his skull. Like, my father died a prisoner, the Harkonnen frigate, and you know.
I felt like he said that very sharply, like almost threateningly, like, oh, is that where your father died? Yeah, that's where his skull is buried, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll bury you.
Yeah, and then he's like, oh yeah, he killed the Baron. He's like, no, my sister killed the Baron just before the Battle of Arakeen. Guess what? That's right. They call her the knife.
The knife.
Saint Alia.
You know it.
So Scytail's basically like a hulking, thick-necked, blunt and vacant-faced man, and who is nudging Edric's tank along on its supporting field. Skytail, Edric had called him. And the aid surface shouted stupidity, but the eyes betrayed him. They laughed at everything they saw. And I thought that's such a great line because Skytail, that's basically, even when he's in the discussions with the Reverend Mother, he's constantly just taking jabs at her.
Yeah. Yeah, he has no respect for anyone that he's talking to, really. He just is like, I got to sell this. I got to sell Muad'Dib on this surprise item that we're going to show up in Act 3. Like, now that you've seen what we've done.
And the jab start, he was like, the steersman's like, what was he? Destroy you, sire? Can one destroy a god?
Yeah.
And Paul's like, yeah, to kill a god? That's very interesting. Who said I'm a god?
There's a lot of, I mean, I think that, I can't remember what the next like third of the book will bring, but I feel like this theme in this like portion, a lot of it was very religious, especially when we get to like the last chapter of like where we finished off. But there's that like tense conversation of like, oh, you think was it this one or maybe it was a different chapter, but it was a conversation of like, you're calling me a god? Who's calling me a god? And then he like calls back to someone else. He's like, yo, dude, you think I'm a god? Like, do you consider yourself one of my disciples? Like, so I think that he's maybe grappling with that, wrestling with that. Like, am I a god to them?
But it also, he goes into that like, not Scythail, but Edric's like, he's like, well, what's worse than a government than a religious government? And I started like going into this weird thing from a couple of years ago. I was like, Frank Herbert was spice presciencing.
And I think too, like Paul even mentions, I don't want religion. Like I don't, that's not necessarily something that I want. I basically keep it around because my sister, who is this goddess essentially, I mean, I guess I got to keep her around, and you know, if I get rid of religion, that means I have to get rid of her.
Yeah, and that actually, that's a good point, because later in the book that kind of comes back at us in a
she leans into it hard, like and like they start going to what is prescience. He's like, are my visions no more than hallucination? Paul asks, mock sadness in his voice, or do you imply that my worshippers hallucinate? Riddle me this. And they like, you twist my words. And then Paul's like, violence here? They wouldn't dare unless there's a lot of chin stroking, like
there's a lot of thinking about, there's a lot of bong rip, you know, like,
and like Paul like pitching his voice so only Stilgar and Edric could hear, conspire, and Edric's like, who said conspire?
What? Me? Huh?
And like just the whole back and forth of trying to make each other uncomfortable. And Stilgar is just like, I just want to kill these motherfuckers. Like, please, please let me kill them.
Yeah.
Which is funny. I mean, we'll get into that a little bit later on, but we see that with Chani a little later on. We'll talk about that. So it's funny that, like you mentioned that with Stilgar specifically, because Chani goes.
We need to sit here for this whole Chani thing, because I know she had strong thoughts.
Yeah. She definitely is like, you know, I'm gonna cut you. I'm gonna get you, and like everybody, and it's like almost, it's like Paul's just giving into nihilism throughout these pages, right? Just like, well, nothing, it doesn't matter, so don't kill him because who cares? Yeah,
or if. I mean, there's moments later on when he has this like little Dune tarot vision where he's like, I know that certain things are going to happen, but if I go along the path that I think I need to go down, then it will happen, but I can't let them happen in a certain way. Like,
the supposed golden path.
Yeah.
Which, boy, that comes back in a big way later on.
Yeah, totally.
So, like, Paul starts going like, listen, religious mana was thrust upon me. I did not seek it. He's like, there, let this man-fish think himself victorious in our battle of words.
Can I just talk really quickly? I don't know if this was very particular, like when Frank Herbert was writing this particular part. I don't remember a single time in the first part where this dude was referred to as a man-fish, but then in this second part he's referred to as a man-fish in his fucking tank, like the entire, like
they were referred to as mutated.
Yeah,
but not a man-fish. And can we just also talk about, because of course I'm going to fixate on this, in another chapter in here he's put that he's in a leotard.
Yeah,
like,
that's
and
right.
all I could think was Dr. Roxo. So now that's like I just think of Edric as
I mean, basically, just reaching into the front pocket. Murder face.
Yeah, that's exactly how I think of Edric now.
Murder face.
Yeah, now I'm having a hard time. Now I'm like because I had this whole, like, you know, he talks like a longshoreman or something because he's like the only guy with a job, right? But I think you have a good point though, because he lives in a gas, so that's gonna mess with your voice.
He's basically doing space cocaine the entire time.
All the time,
popping caplets of Molly, like space Molly, constantly.
Yeah. So what would be like the blend of Dr. Roxo gets a longshoreman job? Like, what does that sound like?
So it's if Devo wrote a Bruce Springsteen song. That's what it sounds like. I think we're on our way.
I have not done enough spice.
Holy Diver sung by Bruce Springsteen.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Holy Diver.
Factory closed down.
It's Dio. It is literally Dio. Yeah. Ronnie James, man.
Oh man, solid digression.
We've already gone down a
Solid.
We've gone down a path. So in this, Paul's like, Edric's like, then why have you not disavowed it? He's like, because of my sister. She's a goddess. And then I'm like,
For real.
creep factor times 1,000 kicking in.
She's preborn.
Yeah.
Let me urge caution where Alia is concerned, lest she strike you dead with her glance.
It's like an inversion of Almost Famous, where like the older sister gives them all the records, but it's the younger sister, and she was preborn and now has a whole cult around her. Similar vibe though, where you're like, wow, my sister's so cool and I'm lame.
Yeah. But he's basically just using his sister for clout.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that well, not to get ahead, but like at the end of the pages we read, I mean, I feel like he has this moment where he's like, oh shit, like she's on her own, she's doing her own thing. She is what have we done here? Like this is like I guess
she's literally a cult of personality. Like,
exactly, yeah.
She kind of has her own thing going that kind of creeps on his to even a greater extent.
What do you expect though? Like her entire life, and like once again, like we'll get into this a little bit, but Gaius, Mother Gaius Mohiam, just keeps on calling her an abomination. Like you grow up being called an abomination, knowing that you're an abomination. Like everyone treats you like you're this like toddler basically, and you're this whole grown ass 10,000 however many women you've been in your mind.
She can remember her mother fucking her father. Like
she can remember every moment of intimacy with her. Like, bitch, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's like, I know what every sex is. Like, I've had it, just not with this form.
Yeah,
that's a great point. As another like aside to the way that this is written, is like there are things like that. There are these ideas that are just so insane that are just like you just bounce off them really quickly like that, right? And you're just like, oh so if I think about that for 2 seconds, it's wild.
Yeah.
So this to me is like Scytale can't stop himself, and he has to have this go fuck yourself moment on the way out. Where he's like, if my lord permits, he's like, Paul's like, okay, yeah, go on. And
sure.
Scytale's like, some say that people cling to imperial leadership because space is infinite. They feel lonely without a unifying symbol. For a lonely people, the emperor is a definite place. They can turn towards him and say, see, there he is. He makes us one. Perhaps religion serves the same purpose, my lord. And Scytale just nodded. He's like, ow.
Yeah, he's like, haha. That actually, it's another thing that that's a great quote because it plays into something else that was in that interview that you sent us, where Herbert talks about how he believes that the natural state of humanity, or humanity naturally moves toward feudalism. Like that, he doesn't say that that's good. He just says he feels like that's where we go, and that seems like Scytale saying that is like a nod to that sort of, what people just want to be controlled, or they will be controlled because they won't do anything about it because it's easy. It's easy to just slide into that.
Well, going with that cult of personality thing too, like he also is like when people are at their most beat down, they either move towards religion or an iconic symbol like John Kennedy. Which was one of the people he was just like, oh, he's evil.
Yeah.
And I was just like, hey, like that's a take. But as we see later on in this, we'll get into, Scott and I talked before you came on about certain historical Earth figures that were brought up randomly.
Yeah.
Shockingly so.
Yes.
Like, whoa.
And I like that Paul's like dimming the lights to talk to Stilgar. He's like, and he's just like, Stilgar's like, that was a foolish thing, Usul, inviting that creature in here. Like, come on, man. And he's like, he's called me by my siege name. What the fuck?
Yeah, like he's getting real familiar.
Like, I imagine it like a parent in anger using the middle name. Like, you're in trouble.
Yeah, like literally, it's like, I'm not calling you Muad'Dib right now.
Yeah.
Like, and Paul's just like, oh, I needed data. I'm a Mentat, remember? And he's like you can just see Stilgar going, oh, dude, like, what? Come the fuck on. Like,
It's funny. I always forget that Paul is a mentat. I don't know if it's maybe that's not a most popular feature of his or characteristic of his that he uses a lot, but I always forget that he's also a mentat.
They only go into it really briefly, and they won't bring it up for like books.
Yeah, and I feel like he uses other people's mentat ability as well. Like he'll ask someone like, "Hey, like use your mentat ability," and it's like, dude, you've got your own.
I felt bad for Stilgar. Like he's just like, I just did all those Zabalon calculations. It like knocks stuff out of my head. He's like,
yeah.
And you want Earth Golden Age? Like,
oh my goodness. This was kind of that creepy part or I felt like it was creepy whenever they're talking about leaders on Earth who've killed tons of people. So they talk about
Genghis Khan,
and then they say Hitler, and it's like they're bringing up how many, like it's a dick measuring contest of how many people who've slaughtered.
But these were also people who were cults of personality that had people go do their killing for him. And it was like, Genghis Khan, was he of the Sardaukar, my lord? Oh, no. Long before that. He killed perhaps, I don't know, 4 million.
Yeah.
Paltry.
And he's just like, wow, he must have had formidable weaponry to kill that many, sire. Laser beams, perhaps? He's like, nope, he didn't kill himself. He killed the way I kill by sending out his legions.
Right.
So,
I just see Stilgar like,
very much. Paul did discontinue his mentat training pretty much as soon as they hit Arrakis.
So he's like a half-ass mentat.
Yeah, half-ass mentat.
He's like a mentat, like version 5.
Yeah.
He's a Mentos.
So I mentat 5. We're on like at least 12 now, right?
Yeah.
So.
Like he's like Stilgar's like killed by his legions. Yeah. Well, those aren't impressive statistics, my lord. And I'm just like, dude. And then he's like, yeah, there's this Hitler guy too. Oh, is he emperor? Like no other ruler ever had your powers. Corb is like, it's just. I think they said that Hitler killed 6 million. Yeah. And I'm just like, all right, like, and I'm just like, I get what you're trying to do here. And this is where we talked earlier, where we felt that where Frank Herbert in the first book was being very subtle, laying down kind of tracks to go. In this one, like, it's more stream of consciousness. He's like, fuck it, this is what's on my mind.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I think too, like, so this was was this 1975 that this came out?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So have you ever seen the film Wizards, the Ralph Bakshi animated movie?
Oof. It was bad.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
1975.
1969.
Oh, 69. Oh, nice.
Oh, nice.
But like there, I feel like, because like that is shocking, because that, World War II was much closer to then than now. And I feel like in media you did see this like handling of it more matter of factly. Like in that movie Wizards, like the part of the premise is this evil wizard is like bringing Hitler back to life to overrun the world when the world's already been destroyed by this like nuclear holocaust, and magic is trying to come back basically. But doing that now, I don't think somebody would like just be like, oh yeah, just bring Hitler back as the villain. They'd be like, go back in time and do a period piece or something. But so yeah, just like throwing those names out there like that, I think it is Herbert just trying to be like beat you over the head with the point he's trying to make.
And this was like this was mid-Vietnam when this came out too, so that probably was another thing probably heavy on his mind writing this, where but this book is so much less subtle than the last one. And we talked earlier about Paul kind of not learning from his father, repeating it, where it's like, I know it's a trap, I'm gonna walk into it, but if I don't walk into it, this other reality happens that terrifies him more than the jihad.
And I think that the visions that he sees of like this path that he's on seem to be a lot clearer to him, where the other ones, because he knows that there's like an infinite number of other ones that he could go down, but this one feels the clearest. And I think even for him, it's like that, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. So at least he has like a clear vision of this path, even though it fucking sucks.
Right.
He does know that he needs to go down it because like at least he knows what it is.
And that comes into play when well, I don't know if we're getting ahead too much, but when he's talking to Chani about her being pregnant now, so like, you know, that happens.
I got a lot of that whole discussion that goes down with the Reverend Mother. Holy shit.
But like Paul, he makes some comment about like, you know, because that's when Chani wants to get his knives out for Irulan, because he's like, I know who did it, and like, let's kill her. And he's like, no, because, and then in his mind, he's like, she actually saved you, because this happening is what ends you. And so he's cut this like that, again, that melancholy sad boy Paul thing of, it doesn't matter. Maybe I'm kind of glad because I got, you know, a few more months, you know, with you, or a few more years with you. Like, who knows how long that she was doing that. But yeah, like seeing the path and sort of like submitting to it in a way, but also like still trying to calculate, you know, if he'd been a better mentat, he'd be better at calculating how to adjust this, not be such a quitter.
This is why you don't drop out of school, Paul.
Exactly.
At the end of this chapter, Paul casually like orders murder. He's like, the four strangers in the garden, just kill him, Corbett. You remember how to kill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. I think that's one of those like flexing type things. Like he needs to do it to remember that he can do it. He needs to do it to feel alive again, I think.
I felt like it was to save face too, because Stilgar's like, listen, you got all these motherfuckers running around. And plus, I just spent all this time learning the Zabulon calculations, and now you want me to Golden Age Earth? Like, what the fuck? Oh yeah, and there's a moon falling.
That.
He's having visions of this like moon falling, and
at the end of that chapter, I think that's the same chapter, but that's a really cool passage of like, so this is like, again, very poetic, sad boy Paul. He goes, the flesh surrenders itself, he thought. Eternity takes back its own. Our bodies stirred these waters briefly, danced with a certain intoxication before the love of life and self, dealt with a few strange ideas, then submitted to the instruments of time. What can we say of this? I occurred. I am not, yet I occurred. I really like that idea of I occurred. And I feel like that's another thing he's like submitting to, of like, I happened, I guess, just like Hitler and Genghis Khan, and who gives a shit?
The passage that opens the next chapter also, like, it's all foreboding and kind of telling you ahead of time, kind of like where Duke Leto, you knew very early, but it says, here lies a toppled god. His fall was not a small one. We did but build his pedestal, a narrow and tall one.
Yes.
When I read that, I immediately, what's that poem by, not Mary Shelley, but
Percy Shelley,
Percy Shelley,
Ozymandias.
As soon as I read that, it reminded me of Ozymandias 1,000%.
Look upon my works, ye mighty, in despair.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
This starts the Alia chapter where she's doing CSI crime investigation.
I love it. Do you just picture her like putting her like still suit thing in, and then it plays the
David Caruso in another still suit.
Yes, David Caruso plays hate in this portion of the book.
Yes,
just for shits and giggles.
Either that, or I'll just play something even weirder, like for those about to rock.
Yeah, it's a whole new. I mean, I think we've established just play a Dio song, so it's Holy Diver.
It is Holy Diver. Can I say something really quick, because I haven't talked about it? There was a Dio Holy Diver comic book that came out, and I spent a whole ass $20 on it.
Jesus.
And
that was better than 40 pages. At least,
it was
right?
fucking ridiculous. It was fucking ridiculous. And who was it written by? Oh my god! It was the art by Sienkiewicz.
Oh, there we go. He's gotten some weird gigs. Not to digress into comic talk, but
no, I thought Sienkiewicz did the Alice Cooper one.
Maybe,
he did do that. I think you're right. Yeah.
Because that was with Neil Gaiman. That was Neil Gaiman's first
Last Temptation.
Work.
Yeah. That was one of the first comics that I had read, and I think that I read that one before Sandman.
So they say there's no such thing as a perfect cover song. I will submit that the Kill Switch Engage, even the video, is perfect cover of Holy Diver.
Oh wow.
To check that out.
Anyways.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Holy Diver graphic novel was not a good one.
All right.
Whatsoever.
Pass.
If only like it sang every time you open it, like those gift cards where every time you open it, Holy Diver.
No, because then I think at that point, like Ronnie James Dio, like his soul rest in peace.
Mhm.
I feel like his soul would be tortured every time you open it up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Poor guy.
I liken this. Alia is like uncomfortable wearing a still suit again. She's like, I've been wearing robes for like
getting soft.
Yeah.
And supple apparently.
Well, yeah, and then we're going into them like they're not meet cute, but I guess they're like this. It's the second act of the rom-com or whatever, right? Where they're like, we have to hang out and annoy each other.
Yeah, that's really it. They're like
it was
annoyed by each
Leia. It was
other.
Leia and Han.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. You scruffy looking nerf herder. Yeah.
Yeah. You scruffy looking Gola with mechanical eyes.
Yeah.
Peer into my soul and make me stare at your cherub cheeks and.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's thirsty.
She's
not just because she's in the desert.
And they go into like moving her copper hair out of her face and like.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah.
And it's so awkward too because like the whole time I think this is also where like even so this Gola who used to be Duncan, how old was Duncan? Do we
I gotta think he was maybe 30.
See, I was thinking 30s or 40s as well.
What was the age that Christ died at? Because that's what I'm going to imagine.
33. Yeah, so he's 33.
Oh, wow.
Probably.
So he came back to life, and now he's he paid for the Atreides sins.
And so like
it.
this entire time, like she's this young woman who's not a young woman, and she's thirsting out. She's kind of thirsting after this old dude, even though
she basically was like in
but
that
she never
spy
met
hole,
him.
ready to start like touching herself. She's like, like literally, she's just like, who is?
But she never met him. But she like remembers him, of course, because like she probably remembers.
Yeah, because her mom knew him.
Her mom.
That's a great point.
Has
I never
any
really.
Bene Gesserit ever fucked Duncan, Idaho? And would she remember that pipe getting laid?
I mean, you would remember all her mom's memories of Duncan.
Yeah, you'd think they'd want that seed for sure.
Yeah,
Swordmaster.
So do you think? So that's what I'm saying. Like,
we'll get back to Seed in a little bit. Like,
oh yes, we will.
Did Jessica ever hit that, or did any other Bene Gesserit ever hit that?
She was dedicated to the Duke, though. Like,
yeah, she really loved Leto. I mean, that's why.
But I'm sure in her thoughts, she was like, if I were gonna cuck
about it, yeah. The Bene Gesserit
thought about it.
Yeah.
But Leto seems like he'd be cool letting another dude in the bedroom.
I just imagine maybe that's just. I think, anyways.
She was always concubine. They might have had to like, you're concubine. You're not my wife. You're my concubine.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that was the.
If you like it, you better put a ring on it, and he didn't.
Yeah, she did the whole dance and everything. That was in the that's in the 1,000-page version.
That was in the Princess Irulan's.
Even dying, he's like, I should have married your mother. Fuck.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So weirdly, I'm not sure how like Alia can figure this out, but she's like, this is a Fremen addicted to Samuda.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, I thought back. I reflected on that after I read the chapter. I was like, how did they glean any of that information?
But I love that Sidetail thought enough to cut her head off and her hands.
Yeah, well, sure. Classic. We've all seen Seven. Seven exists in this world. Like he's seen Seven.
Fincher was just like, I read Dune Messiah and I like what they were doing.
Yep. And then there's the box. So like, what's in the box? Pain.
Yeah. Pain's in the box. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We'll see if you're an animal or a human. And she's like, she heard the Gola's feet stir the sand, looked at him. His attention rested momentarily on the escort thopters. beware of the guild bearing gifts, which that gets mentioned a lot. They hammer the shit out of it. That and these, was it Devine furniture or Davina? It's a
Devon.
Devon.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a fucking couch with no back.
Yeah.
It's like
it's basically a glorified stool.
It's like an ottoman, but with footrests. I mean, like rests at the armrests, just longer. Yes. So that is our furniture of the chapter. Chapters
of this like middle portion for sure.
Although there was a lot of doors.
There were a lot of doors. Yeah. They also do. There's a point, and I noted this because Jen, you talked about it, but there was a point where he talks about filing, and so I pictured filing cabinets, and I was like,
was it the Bene Gesserit files, or was it?
Maybe it might have been that part. He briefly hits on something where it's like, oh, the files, and
I just know that I swear to God, if the filing cabinet shows up in the siege, Jen and I are going to do a half hour on it when we do our reaction video.
Yeah, just go. Just do it.
Which you're welcome to join us for the reaction video after we see it too.
I would love to. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, hey Scott, what are you doing on October 22nd?
Watching Dune.
Let's go see Dune in theaters if you want to see it in theater. If you want to see it in
I do want to see it in theaters.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
I'm seeing it that Thursday night. I'm going to the IMAX, and
I may. Well, yeah, we'll talk about it.
I have the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd off. So.
Yeah, I'll be watching that Dune.
So the creepiness of Alia starts. She's like, a lock of his black goat hair she saw had escaped his stillsuit hood.
Oh yeah.
And she wants to like tuck it back.
That's the most thirsty thing in this book so far is her saying that. Where she's like, I just want to. As though lured by his thought, his gleaming gray metal eyes turned towards her. The eyes set her trembling, and she tore her gaze away from him. And then a Fremen woman who had died here from a poison called the Throat of Hell. And I'm just like, it's an interesting, like... Right. Hard change of...
Yeah.
Yeah, it like... And then Fremen addicted Samuda. Whew, Paul was right. This is weird.
This is weird.
Then, like, her and Duncan get into this, or hate, or whatever the fuck you want to call them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They start getting into this weird philosophical thing, and she's like, why exactly as Duncan Idaho did? And he's like, others have told me this. What are you thinking now? Many things. And like he says many things. I'm like, he's going to the zone.
Yeah.
The danger zone.
I feel like that I still sort of in some ways have a hard time getting a handle on Duncan because, obviously he's in the first book, but he's also, I believe, drunk in Idaho, as I recall him, right? Mm-hmm. As I'll call him. And that's not him. That's him, sauced. And then in this one, he's like golified. And so it's kind of like, I don't know if I have a handle on who he is and how, and his sort of like shifting.
And a mentat philosopher.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's all of a sudden like, and now of course I'm just going to get sucked into picturing him as Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to picture Jason Momoa saying the things he says in this book. But then
it's funny.
I do hear it. I'm trying to like hear it in his voice just to sort of anchor it somewhere, and it sounds amazing. I got to say, like him being all smarty pants about everything is pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
So I very much got like a Spock thing here from him because he's like, not that clever. You were Duncan Idaho. And he's like, very likely it's the prime computation. I was like, you meant prime directive, asshole. That's what you meant.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe he's like Cybok.
Jen's head's like,
underrated. Star Trek 5 is underrated. That's a different show. Anyway.
Yeah. Speaking of Star Trek, sorry, my shirt is Star Trek kind of.
Oh yeah, Stova Core. Kapla.
Yeah.
She gets mad. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. No, Stova Core is a local band, right? They're
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Super cool.
Sorry.
I need to check him out.
She gets mad because he uses her given name of Aaliyah, not Saint Alia.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm like, motherfucker, they stole this shit for Empire Strikes Back. Like 100%. God damn you, George Lucas.
We can get into. There was a piece of trivia I found. When I first read Dune, was Frank Herbert started a group I think, at the Hugo Awards that would meet. And basically they were like, the group was people who George Lucas owes money to, essentially, or like that was like, it was kind of a like, you know, a little bit tongue in cheek, but not like, I mean, because, you know, obviously, yeah, once you look at all of this, you're like, Star Wars borrowed heavily. Now, Star Wars didn't borrow the things that make it unique, though. I think that's the thing where, like, I think what makes these books great is not something you can even steal, because it's like all the weird shit that's in Frank Herbert's head.
Yeah.
But definitely like vibes and settings and patterns. You know, Lucas is like, oh, that's a good idea. Well, desert planet, you know, annoying whiny boy.
Whose father was just as whiny.
No space bears, though. Mm-hmm.
No chair dogs.
No chair dogs. No. I think by the time we got to chair dogs, Star Wars was already out. He couldn't steal that; it'd be too obvious.
He couldn't be bothered to read the books at that point.
Yeah,
like, I've got enough. I have 3 other stories I wrote earlier that I'm going to tell someday. And it's really just a sheet of paper.
I wanted to call him Star Killer, but that's too violent. So,
yeah. Oh.
Alia has Duncan fly by the holy place where her father's skull is. And
very, very goth of her, I think, right? Like...
Yeah. And then he's like, he was, and starts crying. And she's like, he gives water to the dead.
Right. Oh, yes. Yeah, that's right.
So is that...
She put the finger to his cheek.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, let me get
literally
that.
Thirsty. So, is
thirsty.
That the like is that Duncan coming through at all?
I believe so.
Yeah, I feel like that's what we're supposed to get from.
Because he was my like, he wanted to say friend.
Friend.
I want to put a pin in that real quick too, about, because there's something I was going to talk about if we like get to like summing up things, but there's a lot of like inversions of things in this book, and I feel like in a way, you know, what's going on with Duncan, and I don't know if I really like gleaned to this the first time I read it, but this time, you know, Duncan is like, or hate, or, you know, the Gola, however you want to refer to him, and that's kind of the point, is sort of changing and becoming what he was, which is, you know, different than like the purpose he was designed for, right? Whereas the point of like kind of Paul's arc is Paul is fighting becoming the opposite of what he hates, right? So it's like there's things about identity wrapped up in both of them, and the way they sort of adjust and work through that are sort of like they're almost like opposite vectors, right? They're opposite trajectories of each other in a way.
Skytail makes that comment again of the Kwisatz Haderach they bred, that they become this one thing, and then they try to destroy itself.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the like that tension of like who you are and what it does to you, and what realizing who you really are or becoming something else, what it does to you.
That was mentioned a lot. The other, or at least maybe 3 times in this portion, where the other Kwisatz Haderach, who we're not going to really mention, like we're not going to bring that person up, but you know, we had one at one point.
Yeah. They're the Gary Sharones of the Van Halen that is Dune.
It felt like the humble brag, where it was just like, yeah, we bred one already. It just didn't work out. It killed itself.
That is a real tossed off situation.
Like, it basically, like, it became peak David Lee Roth, and then it destroyed itself. The other bandmates couldn't stand them.
Exactly. They tried to make this new album called Tattoo. Oh, hey. Oh no.
Thanks. We were wondering what happened. You made a very impassioned, I'll be there.
I read that as stuck at an ATM.
That's what I thought.
And I was like, damn, that sucks. Did it eat your card?
So Alia starts like mentioning her lives and everything. She's like, I know my father as my mother knew him.
Yeah,
every
right.
That's every experience she shared with him. I was like,
every experience. Like, so here's the thing, is that like clearly the very intimate, like sexual moments. I mean, I don't know how much sex these people were having. But I imagine it was enough, whatever, a healthy amount to produce 2 children. But like clearly Frank Herbert was like, Aaliyah saw her parents boning. Like,
Yeah.
that's clearly
Well,
the distress why she...
But is it even weirder than that? Because it's like, it's not so much that she saw it, it's that she has that experience in her.
Her father.
Yeah, she knows what that was. Also, I know you actually do want to speculate on this, how much they're boning, because, but if we were to speculate, consider, this is a world post Butlerian jihad. There's no, probably no YouTube. There's no smartphones. There's much less to do, except, fight naked against the target practice drones.
Yeah.
And take some spice and do sex.
Then I guess it's probably but
they're probably doing a lot of it.
Duke
rest
Leto
on
was
Sunday.
Right.
Duke Leto was often like going off into the Landsrod and stuff,
and not
right?
sleeping.
Not sleep.
Well, true. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Fair. Good point.
I need a mentat to calculate this for me.
Yeah,
how much sex were?
I would say when he was there, at least 2 to 3 times a day.
I mean, like if I had.
Are we counting oral as part of that? Because I can see.
Of course.
I can see him doing a vid meeting and her just kind of taking care of him.
Even a hand job's a job, dude. Yeah. That's what Mom always said. But I think
welcome to the Dune show.
Welcome to the Dune show. So yeah, I think that they were having a lot of sex. I think it was a lot.
Yeah, probably a lot. Especially considering, sorry, I know I keep bringing it back. I know we're probably trying to move up, but like considering the Bene Gesserit, like that is kind of a thing that they do for business reasons,
For business reasons.
Not like transactional business reasons, but like we need to create humanity going forward. So
and
we've got a filing cabinet of
we go a mile ahead to the honored matres who were just like, we're gonna own you sexually.
Get it?
Literally, where they're chasing Miles Tegg around going, we fucked him when we can't control him. What's going on?
I am sure in Frank Herbert's mind, it was a lot too, because I feel like he's in that zone of like, that's what liberation means. Lots of doing sex, but through my lens of as an old white dude.
As an old white dude, where it's very heteronormative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Duncan or Haight dropped some knowledge on her. She's like, well, what were you sent here to do? He's like, oh, destroy your brother. And
like
she
just
goes,
casual.
Yeah. And he goes, but your brother's going to destroy himself. Ooh. He's on that path. And then she's like, what the fuck did you just say? He goes, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's this thing where everybody knows.
Yeah.
Everybody knows. Paul knows. She knows. Everybody knows. But
they
don't tell each other.
It's the same thing with Duke Leto, where it's like an open secret. He's going to die.
Right. That gets into. We were talking about that briefly because later in the book, there's that point where Scytales change shape to Lycna. And
the dead woman in the desert.
Yeah. Paul's like, I know that's him, and he's just like da 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 da. And Scytale's like, I hope it doesn't know it's me. And like, but really, like the way Herbert's writing it is like, it's happening. There's no like I think if this was written now, there was a movie of this that whole conversation would happen, and then you'd get the scene at the end where like transforms into Scytale, and the audience would be like, oh, but the audience, there's not really like surprises. There's not a lot of like when the rug's pulled out from under you, it's pulled out from under you like at the beginning of a chapter, like with these kind of conversations, right? Where like, Duncan's like, oh yeah, he's gonna destroy himself, and we're all like, what? Well, I guess he is.
Very matter of fact, like
yeah, but just like surprise is not the point, right? This isn't about intrigue in that way where you're like, it's mysterious more in like, why would you let yourself do that rather than what's going to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think that, speaks to the writing, and not necessarily that type of writing is like a cheap effect where it's like the reveal at the end where the face dancer's face comes off, and that's the reveal for like shock value. Not that that's not necessarily good writing, but I think it speaks to the writing that we're still intrigued enough, even though we know that there's a bomb under our seat, but we know that it's set for 10 minutes from now.
Right.
And we're still here sitting down waiting for it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So the creep factor really kicks in here with Ahlia going, And that's why you're dangerous. You've mastered your passions. He's like, that's not why I'm dangerous. And he leaned across, gripped her chin in one hand, and planted his lips on her. It was a gentle kiss, brief. He pulled away. Alia put a finger to her lips. There had been such a sense of familiarity about that kiss. She's like, I should have you flayed because I'm dangerous, because you presume too much. I presume nothing. I take nothing which is not first offered.
So,
and like, I'm just like,
and that's where that comes in. Like that's, I think, why there's evidence that Bene Gesserit at some point fucked Duncan Idaho because it felt familiar.
Well,
so who?
I think, I think Jen, actually, now that you mentioned that, I think to your point earlier, that I kind of forgot that it was worded that way, but I think you have a pretty good case that maybe Jessica.
So
I want to see Rebecca Ferguson make one little, like, give Jason Momoa one little look, like in the movie, like, you know, like a, and so then everybody's like, wait a minute,
finger gun him across, like,
hey,
like,
I mean, but look at that, you know, I mean, you're with Oscar Isaac, so that you're already winning, but then Momoa's right there.
You basically have like the alpha himbo there.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, but I'm just a concubine, so it's not like we're like, there's no papers.
Yeah.
I can do what I want.
And these two go back and forth. It's the kiss you wanted. It's the kiss you wanted.
Right. There are some questions of consent, I guess.
Yeah.
Because
at the same time, like, is there a power? Is there an exchange of power there? So even if she is not necessarily a 15-year-old girl mentally, but maybe physically, but then it's like, is Duncan Idaho lusting after a 15-year-old girl? Ew. Mm-hmm. But then even if it is a woman, like an older woman who can consent was not given, my dude.
No. He took what he wanted.
He said it was, but we're not sure it was.
And that's classic abuser shit, because he's like, you wanted it.
I used my mentat computation and told me you wanted it.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Now I'm sad. It sounds like we canceled Duncan Idaho.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, we got to cancel hate.
Well, yeah, we'll cancel hate. Okay, no, good call.
Yeah.
Because that's all hate doing that. Yeah, not my boy.
Yeah.
This next chapter is Paul, like, just questioning everything in his life.
This is him listening to The Cure and drinking.
Took a massive dose of spice essence to penetrate the mud thrown up by the tarot, the Dune tarot, which is funny that that's a thing in this fucking book.
Once again, awesome. Never mentioned. I mean, obviously for a reason, never really mentioned in the first one, but in this, I don't know.
And he's like, I just want to buy a way to an end for this jihad, to silence the volcano of butchery. Mm-hmm. He must discredit himself, disengage.
Yeah. That gets to which the quote is later, but there's the quote about like how he didn't use the jihad is using him.
Yes.
Right. Like it's what they call it, like a pandemic of the mind or something like that, an epidemic of the mind, and that's him like. Before they talk about that, him having that feeling.
Also, speaking of echoes, there's a moment.
Bezos.
There's a moment here where Paul's like, "I loathe this city." Like,
right.
Rage rooted and boredom flickered and simmered deep within him, murmured by decisions that couldn't be avoided. He knew which path his feet must follow. He'd seen, and it's funny because it's that thing of like, I can't get off this road. I'm stuck on it. And if I deviate from it, shit could be worse because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, totally.
And in Children of Dune, we go further down that Leto II goes down the path he could not take. He would not take.
Yes, he wouldn't take. Right. And then, like you're saying, the echoes. And I actually I pulled out, the OG book. And was because something struck me about that, like, there's definitely like Leto having those thoughts, not so, I guess, bleakly in the first book, but similar to what Paul's experiencing, where he's like, this place is kind of awful and does these bad things to you. Hello. And
we were just talking about the echoes of the first book where Leto, remember where he's like, oh, look at that. The morning, it's so beautiful. I fucking hate this place. And Paul's like, I loathe this city.
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
Yeah. Right.
He like specifically hears like a love song or thinks of like
Yes,
a
he
love
gets-
poem,
thinks of
and he's like, fuck that. Like, he gets angry listening to this love poem, and like I'm here like listening to that love poem, and I'm like, I want someone to say that about
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Aw.
And
He's
then
like-
and then like he's just like,
Where's that Hallmark card?
yeah. And then he's like, screw that. People who think like that are dumb. And I'm like, oh.
Muad'Dib spends water like a madman. That's what the people say.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just there's so many echoes with Duke Leto, and I brought up Children of Dune, how like Paul is like stuck on this road, and he knows if he deviates, something worse is gonna happen. And that's where like in the Children of Dune with Leto the Second, he's like, I couldn't take that road that you're taking, the golden path.
Mhm.
And again, it's like Herbert. Basically, this book is about stagnation.
Mhm.
This series,
it's
and needing to reinvigorate the society.
yeah. Well, it's an echo and an inversion, right? Because it's about like
Ooh.
the first book is like boy and his mother walk into the desert and become elevated, become gods basically, and emperors and everything. And then this book, not to like, I mean, it's a reread, so we've all read it, but like it's someone walking into the desert destroyed basically, right? And that's like,
And then rebuilt from dust.
yeah.
I'd also love a companion book to this of Jessica watching her son do all this shit and like her diary of it. Like,
Yeah, really missing Jessica.
I need Erlon to write that book.
Yeah.
I just imagined that. So Jessica writes this book, and then Irulan just writes in like anecdotes to it. That's like 10 times as long. Like, who did that? Was it Ada Lovelace who ended up like taking Charles Babbage's work and wrote like double the anecdotes in her own book? Was that it? Is that what I'm thinking of? I don't know. Maybe my people are wrong, but yeah.
Way smarter than I am about that. It sounds cool though.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like he keeps focusing on this moon, and I'm like, are you from The Stand? MOON, that spells moon.
Yeah.
It reminded me of how comical it was whenever what's his name was like, remember the tooth? Like he's having this moment where he's like, the moon is gonna fall, the moon is gonna fall.
Yeah.
And then he's like, in the eye blink, he's like, the Bene Gesserit swimming in this tide, the corporate entity trading in genes was trapped in the torrent as he was. Visions of a falling moon must be measured against other legends, other visions in a universe where even the seemingly eternal stars waned, flickered, and died.
Mm-hmm.
This is some like real Sylvia Plath shit.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Does this also give us a little bit more of a window into his prescience and like how it functions really? Because I feel like we always kind of get different.
Well, he also keeps talking about
explanations
how he's taking more spice because the tarot is
muddying
the visions.
Right.
Here's that song. Her hips are dunes curved by the wind. Her eyes shine like summer heat. 2 braids of hair hang down her back, rich with water rings. Her hair, my hands remember her skin, fragrant as amber, flower scented. Eyelids tremble with memories. I am stricken by love's white flame. The song sickened him. A tune for stupid creatures lost in sentimentality. As well as sing to the Dune impregnated corpse Aaliyah had seen. I was just like, bro,
like he's sitting here like listening to or reading some like what's his name, Pablo Neruda type shit. And then he's like, ew.
Ew.
It's like he found like the Beatles yesterday and he goes, fuck yesterday. I'm worried about tomorrow.
Yeah. Right. Not to be too, I don't want to sound like smarter than I actually am. I just know this offhand, but that poem sounds a lot like there's a book of the Bible called Song of Solomon, and it's full of shit like that, right?
I'm 100%
and there's
sure he borrowed
he,
liberally from it.
Yeah, there's a specific one that it's like notable because it's about like how this person is writing a love poem about like someone who obviously like works in the fields and is like dirty and has like wearing like poor people's clothes and like it kind of gives me that same vibe of like of that.
I see your Song of Solomon and I raise you a roomie.
Oh, sweet.
Oh.
Even better.
Because I feel, I mean, obviously, like, roomie is the most, like, gayest, thirstiest shit I have ever read in my life, and it, like, makes my childhood make so much sense because of it. But and it's, of course, because a lot of this, like, borrows from, like, Persian shit. But especially with that poem, like, I got, like, roomie vibes.
Totally, yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. Absolutely. We're some real well-read folk over here.
Yeah. Or we know the stuff that well-read people read.
Wikipedia's fucking sick.
Yeah.
It's so useful.
There's a line here that, like, amuses me to no end where Paul's like, I saw a moon fall, Duncan. Hate. It was gone, destroyed. I heard a great hissing, the earth shook. And Duncan's like, you are drunk on too much time.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I love that line. Yeah, that's a great line. Yes.
Like, it's just such a weird line. I'm like, oh, yeah. Like, he literally is, like, going through time, basically, like, jumping around.
Yeah. Right, because he experiences it in this way that we can't fathom. And that's part of his prescience, is his powers.
And he's like, if I go the way of my vision future, I'll be alive then. What makes you think I want to live there, though? And it's just interesting, like, real existential questions.
Right. Yeah, and that's where he gets into the Aya Kurd quote near the end there,
And this is, I think, an important line. You've digested so much time that you have delusions of immortality. Even your empire, my lord, must live its time and die.
Yes.
Ozymandias right there.
Totally, Ozymandias, yeah. It's exactly that.
We see you, Frank Herbert, past all the, like, weird sex stuff.
Yeah. That's ultimately what you're doing with every story that you're writing. You're writing the same story, but you're adding, sex witches and monster worms and
fishmen.
Yeah, fish dudes that are in a guild.
Leotarded fish dudes.
Yeah, leotarded fish dudes.
I mean, Paul sounds like a lunatic. The moon fell.
Oh yeah, he is a lunatic. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I feel like getting into his brain in this book, you're like, Jesus.
And he starts accusing
these people.
He starts accusing. He's like, "Is that how you destroy me? By, like, not letting me collect my thoughts?"
The word lunatic does come from the word moon. Lunatic.
Oh yeah, there you go. Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Damn.
Dark Side of the Moon.
There you go.
Which they use in the trailer for Dune, which done by Hans Zimmer, no less, doing a remake of Pink Floyd. By the way, that soundtrack is fucking amazing.
It's really cool. I've been listening to it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as I hit Spotify, I was like, Paul's still, like, he's, like, raging on. He's like, I'm deviled by a vision and you spew nonsense. What do you know of prescience?
Who's spewing nonsense here, my dude?
Yeah, I think the one spewing nonsense, it's pretty obvious who that is.
My falling moon is real.
Yeah.
But it's symbolic. It's not the moon. Like, when he looks at Alia's temple and he goes, oh. And then, like, they don't really say when he realized that Chani was going to... We're getting to that chapter now.
I feel like the symbolism of the moon falling was him realizing that. At least that's what, like, my perspective was, because I was kind of thrown by that. I'm like, wait, did it actually say that he realizes that Chani is not going to make it?
Does that echo to, man, there's a lot of stuff, but in the third book, there's some more prominent falling, right? Not to give it away to people, but Aaliyah, right? Falls out of the window.
Also,
is that part of it?
There is a great factor of what Paul names his daughter.
Oh, Ganima?
Ganima? Yeah, when you look up what it actually means, it's not a...
Yeah, it's like a kind of a...
What does it mean?
Kind of a negative thing, isn't it? Sort of a...
Yeah, like, it's been
I
a
looked
while
this
since
up
I
previously.
looked it up, but...
Yeah, it's a... In
Spoils
Arabic,
of war.
Yeah,
Spoils of war.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ooh.
And she kind of becomes a spoil of war where they force her to marry the Carino grandson, I think.
Yeah, she really gets short shrift.
Yeah.
Which I think at some point we'll get to that book.
Yes.
Because that might be the most important book of the series.
Probably.
Possibly. Like, I do love it.
I love it.
Leto the second may be the most tragic character after Erelon.
Wait, Paul's not a tragic character?
Paul's just an emo character, okay?
Hold the phone. Hold
Paul,
on.
I felt was inevitable.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Leto wanted, like, Erelon definitely didn't want to be what she ended up being.
Yeah, like
She had a
didn't
successful
choose
writing
any
career.
Of this.
Right. She could have been a writer, but whatever.
Well, I think she is a writer.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the writing life chose her. I don't
Sure.
think she chose it.
She is a blogger. Like,
Yeah.
she would basically be like page 6 for New York Post. And in the
I think that she would have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If not for the Butlerian Jihad, Erelon, there might be a whole different life for her.
Yeah.
I would have her as a guest.
Yeah, I know you would.
So tell us about the jihad today.
Just the whole time we're just silent, and over here's Erelon.
Oh, she would just nonstop talk. She'd be like, "Yeah," and then like I said, I was gonna cuck him, and he said, "Go ahead, I don't give a fuck. Don't get pregnant."
Yeah, and then she thought, and then she looked at Edric and was like, well, "Maybe, nah, I'm not gonna know."
But
Maybe, but what would it be like? But I don't know.
But that leotard, though, like I see what he's hanging with in that leotard.
We all look the same in the dark.
Ooh.
That's what she would say.
Yeah.
But did she have to get in the tank with him, or never mind? That's a whole other thing.
Suspensors.
Different show.
Kind of like what the Baron had to use.
Yeah, right.
Which Syd was nice enough to work out the weight conversion for us, and she was at the time doing the metric. 400 pounds. The Baron.
Okay.
Wow.
Oh, I mean,
it's a big dude.
Yeah.
There's sumo wrestlers that are that big.
Thick with 2 C's.
Daddy thick.
Daddy thick.
Daddy thick.
Granddaddy thick.
Baron thick.
Yeah.
The beginning of this chapter was interesting. It's from the Stilgar commentary, which I love that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Oh, that's a whole. He definitely was like, I gotta start writing this shit down.
Yeah.
And then there's like a 20-volume set of this Stilgar's shit talking this whole situation.
He's got a podcast like Serial.
Oh. Yeah. It's just spilling all the tea.
It's him and Jessica.
Yeah.
And it's like sponsored by like Chris Knife Sharpeners.
Yeah, totally.
I do
go to chrisknifesharpener.com and enter.
They mentioned Alia carries 2 knives, one under her neck and then one by their hip. Like I was just like, the neck one seems kind of like it would be difficult to grab.
I like to imagine it comes out like this, but if it doesn't, that is dumb because you could be like, like.
I imagine that it's a necklace that hangs like right here.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Stilgar's like, you do not beg the sun for mercy. That's his big commentary line.
Yeah.
So this chapter has the Reverend Mother Helen Moheim, or
Gaius.
She gets this is a whole thing. Yeah, this is great.
The fall of her, basically.
Yeah, just really like catty. The whole thing is just like, man.
Well, just the walking her like a couple of miles to this fucking keep.
Yeah. And she's like, my dogs are barking right now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm an old lady. Yeah. And
Yeah.
she's like, I was once like a spry young lady, like getting fucked every which way. And now look at me. Like,
for the sake of humanity's future.
The burdens age had imposed on her, the aching joints, responses not quick. Once they'd been muscles not as elastic as the whipcords of her youth. A long day lay behind her and a long life. She'd spent this day with the Dune tarot in a fruitless search for some clue.
There's the tarot again.
Yeah. It's her only friend at this point.
They had deaf mutes walk her because still she's still a fucking danger to anybody around her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that little touch.
Yeah. I feel like she is a little bit like there's snow on the mountain, but there's fire in the valley. Kind of like,
totally.
even though she's old, even though we know that she can't fight,
she will fuck you stupid.
She will still fuck you stupid.
Yeah,
that's the best way to be fucked by.
And I like that they mentioned tiles lay underfoot, figures of water creatures from exotic planets, water reminders everywhere.
Tiles.
The tiles.
And she definitely
doubling down on this shit.
Really,
and this chapter, because she is being like walked through this like maze of passages, and she's talking about like the grandeur of it and how it is
she's
meant
impressed
to
and
be
then annoyed.
Impressed and then annoyed, and then she's talking about like being walked through these ginormous halls and through doorways that make you feel small and insignificant. Like these things are so big. It's supposed to like a Vegas casino. It's supposed to like take away your perception of time and like what day it is and where you're at. And I think that it's purposeful. Like she realizes she's having this like internal monologue, like, man, this place is really long. Like, where are they taking me? And then she's like, oh shit, they're doing this on purpose to like either humiliate me a little bit, to distort my perception of where I'm at. So they're torturing her doing this.
She starts talking. She's like, subtle indications, the relative suppression and selection of words by her escort, the traces of primitive shyness in their eyes when they called her Reverend Mother, the cold and bland, essentially odorless nature of these halls, all combined to reveal much that a Bene Gesserit could interpret. Paul wanted something from her. And she started getting elated. She's like, I have a bargaining lever. This fucker's not going to kill me. And then she starts remembering what Scytale told her. When a creature has developed into one thing, he will choose death rather than change into the opposite.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to like that point, Scott, that you made about like inversion and like becoming something and then like, yeah.
Well, and also becoming something without even realizing it.
Yeah.
Right?
She also talks about the room makes the throne seem much larger than it is.
Yes.
And how like it's made of an emerald, and it's just growing things, and out of the Fremen mythos reflected the morning color. It whispered here that here sat he who could make you mourn life and death in one symbol. And she's like, okay, there's a lot going on symbol wise. Like
this is a message.
Very much so. And she right away goes, so the great Paul Atreides deigns to see the one he banished.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And he was just like, listen, I'm not in the mood for verbal fencing with you. Let's.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right, name what you want. And he's like, yeah, let's go in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got some divans to sit on.
Yeah. And he's basically like, I'm gonna have a child whether you like it or not. And she's like, okay, like give Princess Irulan a baby. And he's like, no, it's gonna be Chani.
Yeah.
Oh no, he's like, I will give you my seed. You could put it into like a plunger and inject it into her, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah. And I love her wrestling with like how disgusting it is to just do it artificially like that. Like, and of all the things that they're like doing, like that's her line is like, because I mean they're just manipulating genetics going forward, but she's like, but it has to actually be you two having sex. It can't be us with a turkey baster. It's got to be real sex.
Yeah, I've seen Don't Breathe. That turkey baster went wrong for him.
But okay, so there's a point though that I think that she makes that brought me back to the first book and the first interaction that they had.
Has been about that genetic plan.
Well, no, because this was what brought me back is she specifically mentions how that type of artificial insemination is for animals, and if you think and you go back to the first conversation that she has with Paul, like this is the test that separates us from animals. So like I felt that presence there when she's like, ew, like having sex like that is for animals. Like we have sex like humans in the natural way.
That's a good point that you bring to the weight of that experience that within the first 80 pages, right, of the book that happens. And it's the weight of that informs the conversation they're having now.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember when I stuck your hand in a box and was like, "Does it hurt?" You know,
Does it hurt?
does it hurt? Oh, good.
Also,
You're not an animal.
I love that her presence triggers Stilgar so much.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Stilgar is kind of on a knife's edge, I think.
Yeah.
But he literally is like, you can have my seed, but not my person. Irulan banished and inseminated by artificial. He's like, you dare? Stilgar's like, come on, like I got you. Like,
please,
and he's
dear,
like,
just please,
Yeah.
just give me a reason to
Trigger happy.
just.
she's like, I will listen to no talk of sins, abominations, or the beliefs left over from past jihads. You may have my seed for your plans, but no child of Irulan's will ever sit on my throne. She's like, your throne, my throne.
My throne.
I do like him like digging that in too, because it's kind of like it's a moment of, you know, Paul's being a sad boy, but this is a moment where he's like trying to protect something of his life, where he's like, I don't even care about the jihad. I don't even care about this religion that I've spawned. He just like wants to be with his woman, and you know, whatever. If it's just the castle in Arakeen, like, and that's his kingdom, like, then that's all. He just wants to protect that, or just go back to the siege, right? Just go back to the desert and protect that.
Yep.
I kind of love that.
Also, the way they talk about Irulan, where like, well, she is a coin spent.
Ouch. That's just, they're really mean to Irulan. I can see why you're kind of like a little down on that treatment of her.
I mean, she made a choice. She did make a choice.
Yeah.
To live this life.
Yeah, but they gotta be so mean about it.
Yes.
Did she really have a choice?
And then like the Reverend Mother's like, listen, you got a sister who's of age, and we can do the same thing.
Right. That was that's her flex.
Duncan's like,
I volunteer as tribute.
I just imagine like from It's Always Sunny, Frank going, I'm gonna make that whore my wife.
The other thing is just like, she's an abomination already, so what would that do to that line?
Make it awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good question, though. It's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Ollie is another tragic character because she never asked for what she got.
Well, and that is a fascinating, like, it's a good point because, you know, she is going through this. She's just referring to her as an abomination all the time since the beginning, right? And then now she's like, but she's Atreides, so that's the juice we need. So, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Or my Kwisatz Haderach in this case, maybe. The
Reverend Mother has that. She's like, tell me, O flawless exemplar of all that's holy, has Irulan anything to say to your prose? Irulan will do what you tell her to do.
Yeah.
God. Again, just getting raped.
And then she's like, there are two Atreides, and he's like, careful what you suggest.
Yeah,
especially thinking of like how like you keep calling this girl an abomination, but she will literally fuck you up. Like,
oh yeah, she'll kill you too. Like I'm the only. Paul's the only one keeping her alive.
Yeah.
Like everybody's ready to just cut her throat.
Yeah.
At first, I thought she was suggesting that the two of them bone zone, and
she's like, she's not against it.
Yeah.
She's like, will you do that? And Paul's like, no. I mean, she doesn't ask it, but she's like, how can I like ask it without asking it?
Yeah.
Would they? Have you seen Game of Thrones? Would you do this? Because that also exists in this world.
Tyrion Mentat.
What's that?
Tyrion Mentat.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. He would be a solid. Yeah, I want to. Like drunk Mentat. Tyrion would be. I mean, we do get Bijaz later, right? There's a little bit of that.
And then there's like Paul's like talking about the metal eyes that Duncan Idaho has. Like, there are many degrees of sight, many degrees of blindness, Paul thought. And then he's like, I turn to the Bible. What senses do we lack that we cannot see another world all around us? And I was like, oh boy, Paul. Back to the Orange Bible. Didn't we learn from Dr. Yue?
So philosophical.
The next chapter, we're back to Skytail and Edric.
Yes, I love their relationship of like
they're like two old gay dudes.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Oh Hello guys.
Yeah.
Except Skytail they, them, gender fluid?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd probably, if you rewrote this, I mean, Herbert does use he and him, but I think that's probably, if you rethought this, it would make more sense to use, they, them pronouns for Sidetail, because,
or he, him, they, them.
Yeah, he, him, they, them. It might be like a wherever they're at the moment. Yeah.
So
whole sparring match.
Yeah, he's like, you risk much leaving your post and coming to me here at this time. He's like, how weak and narrow is your thinking? Who is it who comes to visit you? And he's like, this is not the shape which walk the streets.
Yeah.
One would not look twice at some of the figures I have been today. So all day he's just been fucking with people.
I want I mean, it's a much shorter book, but like I kind of want to know, like, what's Sidetail doing? Like, you can give me like 5 pages on Sidetail's day in the Eric Keene markets.
But he's just like, we gotta speed shit up. Like, this is starting to get a little out of hand. And like, he's like, well, you're the one who made the gift. Like, he goes, yeah, we're gonna have to prod. He's like, I don't know, like.
Well, I do love that he tells Edric to prod the Gola, which is kind of wild, right?
Is Edric Morty and Skytail's Rick?
Oh, yeah, probably.
Oh, geez, Skytail, I don't
Basically.
know.
But then they keep like saying like, how do we what's the catalyst for Duncan Gola hate Frankenstein thing to just go ape shit? And it's like, well, ask him who he is, basically.
Yeah. Right, he says, where's that part?
Sidetail starts going, instead of Ollie, he's like, what do you mean? He's like, never have philosophy and culture had such a patronist. Pleasure and beauty unite. And what is enduring about beauty and pleasure, Edric demanded. We'll destroy both Atreides' culture. They dispense culture the better to rule. Beauty, they promote the beauty which enslaves. They create a literate ignorance, easiest thing of all. They leave nothing to chance, chains. Everything they do forges chains and slaves, but slaves always revolt.
Yeah.
Sidetail's quite the philosopher.
Yeah.
And then after that, they even say the sister may have a child.
Right.
Yeah. May wed and produce offspring.
Oh, and he says the thing about untracked sand too, right? Like that's another philosophical. When you awaken, the first light shows you the new world, all fresh and ready for your tracks.
Like, Skytail is such an interesting character because it just seems like he lives to fuck with people.
Yeah.
Well, and he's right about so much, right? That's something I thought of too at the beginning of this book. Is this could be a stretch, and not to go on like too much of a political tangent, but like this whole conspiracy, it's kind of like. Jones? Yeah, well, no, it's more like when a bunch of corporations get together because they're upset about a piece of legislation, and instead of like the rest of their existence doing something about the state of the world and preventing like a tipping point where that happens, they just get mad at the one time. And so like Paul is like the one thing that they don't like. He's the one bill they don't like, and they all get together and we could read it and be like, yeah, we probably should get rid of this guy because he has this galactic theocracy that's killed 61 billion people. However, you're all terrible, and like you're right, but you're awful.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and you're also not really thinking ahead because they're really just like, let's get rid of this guy. And then, but does that mean then Aaliyah moves in? Which I mean it does, and and they're not really thinking through that either. They're just like, get rid of Paul. And in Sidetail's case, it's kind of just a means to his own end, right?
Sidetail's kind of philosophical too, because like at one point he's like, it's this planet, it raises questions. And Edric's like, planets don't speak. He's like, this one does.
Yeah.
Edric's like, oh, it speaks of creation, sand blowing in the night. That is creation. Sand blowing. When you awaken, the first light shows you the new world, all fresh and ready for your tracks.
Yes.
Untracked sand.
Not straight tracks though, because you're an idiot if you just walk with
walk without rhythm.
I just imagine Frank Herbert like just stoned on that beach that originally
in Florence, Oregon.
Yeah. In Florence, Oregon, yeah.
Just sitting there going, hey man, like this beach is eroding and like we gotta do something about this. And then just like, I need Space Hitler.
Yeah, basically, because he was thinking, he's like, well, what do I do? Do we affect the environment, or do we let the environment affect us? Because like the sands were basically like creeping up a lot, and it's like, do we as humans affect the environment, or do we let the environment affect us?
Yeah.
But thank God he was shitty at that, and so we get Dune.
Well, yeah, it's like he was a kind of a failed science writer, because
Yeah.
I get the impression he's like, oh man, this is just facts. This isn't playing to my hatred of Kennedy.
Yeah, yeah, basically.
I'll write my own thing about that.
This also is the line: the jihad is finite. Muad'Dib has used his jihad, and Skytail's like, he didn't use the jihad used him. I think he would have stopped it if he could. Mm-hmm. If he could, all he had to do was, oh, be still, Skytail barked. You can't stop a mental epidemic.
Yeah, mental epidemic. That's the term he used.
It leaps from person to person across parsecs. It's overwhelmingly contagious. It strikes at the unprotected side, in the place where we lodge the fragments of other such plagues. Who can stop such a thing? Muad'Dib hasn't the antidote. The thing has roots in chaos. Can orders reach there?
I feel like we are currently living in this like mental epidemic.
Absolutely. We absolutely are. And I think there's mental epidemics on the regular.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, I've been on dating sites where people are like, if you're vaccinated, swipe left. I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me?
Wait, left is bad, right? I don't know. I haven't been on one of those. I'm an old man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I have to. So swiping left means no.
No.
Okay.
Swiping, got it. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate the.
Yeah.
I've been living in the desert in a siege for, you know.
I'm still in recovery from my last relationship, so like,
I'm sorry.
Kind of looking for. Well,
you're looking for your Irulan.
Something fun.
You should put that in your bio. Looking for my Princess Irulan.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Do you write about one subject incessantly?
Was your dad an ineffective leader?
Have you ever wanted to be cucked and put out to?
I was just about to say, like, are you really just looking? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't. I don't want to be your Paul. That's what you have to also put. Looking for my Irulan.
Scytale also has like another thing. He's like, we're all contaminated.
Ooh.
And he reminded himself that Edric's intelligence had severe limits.
That was mean. That was really mean. I did not. I don't want to say I'm like an Edric fan, but I sort of like, I get where he's coming from the most, because again, he's a dude with a job. They do something. Everybody else is like, yeah.
He's like, but when we destroy him, the contagion. He's like, I should leave you in his ignorance, but my duties will not permit it. Besides, it's dangerous to all of us.
Does that suck to be Edric too when he has to listen to this? Because he can't just like wheel himself out, right?
Yeah.
He's got to just sit there in his tank and hear this BS.
He just like slips some spice and just
he's just like
off.
And then Edric's like, we've dealt with religions before. If this new, he's like, it's not a religion. Like religious government is something else. Muad'Dib has crowded his Qizzarat and everything, displaced the old functions of government, but he has no permanent civil service, no interlocking embassies. He has bishoprics, authority. At the center of each island is a man. Men learn how to gain and hold personal power, and men are jealous.
Yeah, that definitely has got to be like another Herbertism of like, you know, you build a bureaucracy and then you're just creating a bunch of little kings, right? I think that's what he's getting at.
He also has to bring up one. Hey, we did have our own quiz on Haderach once.
Right. He's like, hey, remember when we did that? Remember when we quizzed on Haderach and then we killed him?
This is not a humble brag. I'm just letting you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he also brings up, he's like, Muad'Dib knows we would attack his Chani. We must move faster than we have. You must get to the Gola, prod him as I've instructed.
Yeah. Which again, like, well, you have to wheel me everywhere. Why am I the one that has to prod the Gola? Like, I'm in a tank. He's your Gola.
I also love the worm song from the Dune book.
Yes, I like that.
Chapter.
I like that. Yeah, that's cool. I want to hear that. Yeah, I want somebody to like record that. I don't know who would do
it. So say, is it a song or like?
I feel like it has to be a song, or it could be a song.
The musician Grimes.
Oh yeah,
did a whole Dune inspired album.
Oh, how do I not know about that?
Yes, Jen had just discovered it when I was like,
Oh,
for some reason I was looking for Dune music and it came
Yeah.
up. She did a whole album of nothing but like Caladan.
Oh,
So there's a
that's
song
cool.
called Caladan and all this other. There's also another musician called Duke Leto
Oh, nice.
that my
Okay.
friend guest sang on a song on. And I was
That's
like,
awesome.
wait, you didn't tell me you were doing this. I am like the biggest Dune fan. She's like, I don't even know what this shit is. I was just asked, I was like, oh.
Oh man, that's how it always goes down, right? When you get a gig like that. Like
And then
Oscar Isaac hasn't read the book.
There's the old techno song by Eon called Spice that controls the He who controls the spice, controls the universe.
Don't forget
Rebecca,
about the Iron Maiden song as well.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes, Iron Maiden had a
Oh.
Dune-inspired song.
That's right.
It was
What's
not
the-
very good.
No.
One of my
Rebecca
least
Ferguson
favorites.
just put out that she's almost done with book 1 of Dune.
Oh
Look,
wow.
I mean, yeah. Not surprised. It's a long book, and she's been doing
I love her
lots of
as
stuff.
I think she was perfect casting for Jessica because
Yes.
some of the roles like Mission Impossible,
Mhm.
whatever number it was, like
Yeah.
she's good at action. As Rose the Hat and Doctor Sleep,
Yeah, love her
has
in that.
a malevolence to her.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, she's very beautiful, but she has an edge. Yeah. She has like an edge where you're like, she's up to something.
Very
She's not
much
just
so.
she's not just the sweetheart. She's up to something.
I've seen complaints already about Zendaya as Chani.
I don't want to hear any Zendaya slander.
Yeah.
It's just she doesn't fit the racial profile, and I'm like,
Oh well, okay.
Oh yeah.
And
This
I'm
sounds
like-
familiar. This sounds familiar. That's a criticism.
I get it, but at least they got a person of color.
Oh yeah.
And look, they could have done better, especially after watching Green Knight, which holy shit, what a fucking phenomenal movie. Dev Patel is fucking amazing in that movie.
Yeah.
I recommend
need
it highly.
If they do a Swamp Thing
As Levi,
Oh,
Levy.
he's
as Levi, yeah,
Yes.
then I need Dev Patel to be Levi.
So you basically what you're saying is you just want to hear Dev Patel yell Jennifer.
I do.
Because you want it to be a direct.
Yeah.
No, it's fair. Understandable.
Also, when I was growing up, I had the hots for Saeed from Lost.
Oh,
So
sure.
like
everybody had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So that could be a possibility.
Which would
for
be
me.
his most interesting.
There's a lot of himbos in that show.
He was in Planet Terror of that Grindhouse movie.
Oh yeah. He's
Oh,
Where he was
wow.
collecting people's balls.
Yeah, that's right.
I
That's
love Grindhouse. It
right.
was so stupid, but those like mock trailers during it. There was the one for Thanksgiving by Eli Roth that I hate Eli Roth, but that was like the greatest trailer ever. Dark meat, white meat, it all gets stuffed. And it has a knife coming through. Like it had the mother's head sewed onto the turkey.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he
Mhm.
starts fucking it.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, like it's just,
Yeah.
it's so dumb, but
That's-
I love
yeah.
it. And like Death Proof.
Yeah, Death Proof. I love Death Proof. Death
Kurt
Proof is
Russell.
Controversial opinion for me. Not that this is the show that this is about, but that's like one of my favorite Tarantino movies.
Very
Wow.
much so. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I have like the biggest crush on. But knowing she's with Ewan McGregor, like I get it.
Yeah, we all want to
Listen.
do Ewan McGregor at
Yeah.
some point.
And she played Huntress in Birds of Prey, which I
Obi-Wan.
thought she was the best. Huh?
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah. But I mean, she's just I've always loved her, and Ramona
She's
Flowers,
great.
of course.
Ramona, yeah. Oh yeah, she's got the nerds wrapped around her finger for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, very much so. So
Worm Song.
Yes, Worm
Worm-
Song.
Worm
O
Song.
worm of many teeth, canst thou deny what has no cure, the flesh and breath which lure thee to the ground of all beginnings? Feed on monsters twisting in a door of fire. Thou hast no robe in all thy attire to cover intoxications of divinity or hide the burnings of desire. Worm Song from the Dune book.
The
No
Dune
author.
book. It was Erlon.
Probably, she definitely wrote that.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy. Hera makes a fucking comeback in this.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she's there
Yeah.
still.
Yes. I'm like, thanks, Paul. Thanks for mentioning your almost wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which Hera has the best line in Dune of, "Honey, you need to clean your floor. It's
You need to
dirty."
clean these rugs in here.
These
Your
rugs,
rugs are
yeah.
getting dirty in here.
Yeah. Very dirty. So this is where it opens with Paul and Duncan
He's
training.
worked up a sweat.
Yeah. They don't say whether they're naked when they practice sword fighting. I only bring that up again because of what Frank Herbert did in the first chapter.
And Chani's only in the 6th week of her pregnancy, according to this, and she's getting ill constantly.
That's right. Yeah, right. Because she's like, because the contraceptive hasn't had like long-term effects, I think.
But did Paul have it turned up to 11 on the training?
Right. Yeah, we don't know. We don't say. Well, and maybe like because it's just Paul versus Duncan, because this is where, right, they're sparring, and then Chani comes in and she's like, "Is he gonna kill you?" And he's just "Nah, he won't."
She's got murder on her face.
Yeah, murder on her face, right?
Which I'm going to shout out Syd here. One time she's like, "Yeah, going into the second book, Irulan's kind of a cunt." And like, yeah. Oh yeah, she has strong feelings about Irulan. Like, it's been our constant fight because she's like, "Why do you like her?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Like, it totally could be because as a child I watched that David Lynch Dune and it's Virginia Madsen.
Yeah.
And then the TV movie, it was Julie Cox. I was like, they're all very attractive and I kind of like them.
Yeah. I mean, the character is built to be, the beautiful princess that, hello.
Howdy.
We're just talking more about Dan's love of Irulan.
Yeah.
Well, no, I said like I had to shout out Syd because Syd in the first season was like, what Irulan does later, she's kind of a cunt. I was like,
yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
And we're moving into it.
We find out why.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we knew that Irulan had been doing this before, but then Chani is how. Sorry, I'm listening to the audiobook. And they pronounce it Chani.
Okay.
And
So
in my
Game
heart,
of
her name
Thrones,
is Chani.
In Game of Thrones, the audiobooks, that motherfucker, like every other chapter changes names, how he pronounces them. It angers me so much because like just choose one and fucking stick with it. God damn it, Roy Dotrice.
But
you gotta stick with that.
So then we're on the chapter where like
she has murder on her mind.
Chani basically walks in and is like,
murder on her
face. That bitch, I'm gonna kill her. I'm gonna kill her.
Yeah.
Where is she? And I love this moment because it's like, I think it's even said like you can take the Fremen out of the Dune, but you can't take the Dune out of the Fremen. Like 100%, like she's gonna go America all over everybody's asses in this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I also wanted to thank everybody, the 4 people who are in our watching live, because I'm impressed that you've stayed this long.
Yeah.
Like we've been all over the map, but totally appreciate you guys watching our weird flights of fancy on this. And I know this is not for everyone.
It's all relevant though.
Yeah.
It's prescient visions. We've seen the future, and unfortunately, reading some of this, I was like, did he have prescience? Like Frank Herbert was just history repeating itself.
Right.
Hi, Brandon. Thanks
Hello.
for stopping into Dune Talk.
Hey, Brandon. And Bobby. Hello, Bobby.
I didn't see Bobby till now. Hey, Bobby.
And
Bobby, this is my face. I've only seen you in the chat. Now you see my face.
So like it's so weird that like reading some of this and then seeing stuff going on in the world currently.
Yeah.
Like
there's a lot of women with murder on their face.
I need to talk to Brian Herbert and be like, did your dad do Spice?
Oh, for sure.
I wonder if like there is a story there of like, famous dads. Stories about famous dads can be fascinating,
So I don't know if the older version had the prologue with his son talking about his dad.
No, I don't think.
And how it failed miserably after the original Dune.
Yeah.
But every sentence is, well, my dad. And I'm just like, no. Like, I get it, but just don't start every sentence with, well, my dad.
That's his dad.
Shawnee comes in, she starts like saying, "Someone has been feeding me a contraceptive for a long time.
Yep.
Before I began the new diet, there'll be problems with the birth." And he's like, "There are remedies, dangerous remedies." Like, and it's like they're talking, it's a poison. And she's like, "I'll have that bitch's blood."
Yeah.
And this is that part where, like I was alluding to before, this is Paul inside. He's just like, yeah, you don't know. It could have been worse. But you know, he's like, but sorry, baby, you know.
But he's like, "My Sahaya." I'm like, "You're not defusing this by calling her my Sahaya. It's not happening."
Nope.
But she's like, "My life burns faster. The birth now controls my life. The medics told me it goes at a terrible pace. I must eat and take more spice as well."
And she says that she needs to eat 4 times as much. And I'm like, girl, live it. Like, eat those donuts. Eat that pizza.
And she's like, "I will kill her for this." He's like, "Hold up."
Yeah. Actually, she did you a favor.
Yeah. Well, I think that she really just did Paul a favor because I don't know.
He mansplains a little bit. He's like, "You're going to kill no one. That's what you're going to do."
This is really, and if you examine it, it's classic mansplaining. And he's like, you don't know. It's actually not that. It could have been worse because you're going to die.
He keeps going, like, "What have you seen?" He goes, "Don't worry about it, baby.
Like, don't worry about it. I can't. Yeah. You wouldn't understand."
And it's just like, what I've seen.
Man things.
This is guy shit.
This is guy shit.
I gotta talk to this Gola that's trying to destroy me.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Why?" She's like, "Why mustn't I kill her?" He's like, "Because I told you. That's why."
Not cool.
Like,
rude.
No, like,
rude.
It's... And then she's like, "You've been crossing blades with that thing," and he's like, "I'm better for it."
Have you been crossing blades?
Ooh. So here's another. Not that that's not an echo. But we have another echo here, right, where like Paul is in charge and his Chani is this concubine, essentially, right? Again, like they're not, because Irulan's like the official whatever, and she's just, but like he has the opposite relationship kind of with her. I mean, it's more of a power imbalance again, because like obviously Jessica is such a important and like sort of self-actualizing character in that first book. Like she knows what's going on. She's like in charge. She kind of has like a plan, even though she is like struck by the Duke dying and everything.
And all of this is basically her fault.
She was also that
a girl.
Yeah, exactly. That's also that. But like, whereas like, and you felt a little bit more like they were trying to be equals. Like they were trying to sort of share power and share like, or not power, but like share their insights. Whereas in this, Paul is just like totally like.
So that turned for me when he said, "My mother's my enemy" in the first book. Like,
well, yeah, I mean that turn, like later it turns, but like I'm more saying like
early on,
like it's like Paul and Cheney are Leto and Jessica, right? And how those relationships with each other,
the dynamics,
the dynamics are a little bit like. They sort of echo each other, but then they're flipped in a way, or they're distinct in an important way.
And it's the weird thing of like there is like a cyclical thing going on. It's just history repeating itself. Yeah, and I know like Cidnya in the first season of this was like everything kind of is in threes.
Plans within plans within plans.
Which I don't necessarily see it as threes as much as this is just echoes of history. And Paul keeps falling into the same trap. It's history repeating itself, but I think he also intentionally is meaning to spring the trap because he sees that other path.
That it's worse.
That terrifies him.
He kind of sees it.
Yeah, he kind of sees it. Again, like we're not...
It's muddy.
Yeah, it's muddy. It's like I just never feel like I have a clear idea of exactly how his power works, but I think that's also kind of the point, because it's supposed to be this weird hallucinatory experience that he has, and it's beyond our understanding.
They talk about Alia having seems to be a clearer vision than him at this point.
Yeah.
Well, she knows what it was like to have sex with her dad. So.
And I don't know if that's because of I don't know if it's because of him spreading his seed that his powers weaken.
classic. It's a little too into Proud Boy territory for me to like want to.
Like, I don't know, because like it seems like his powers get weaker after the pregnancy.
Ooh.
Oh no.
And
I think he's just a sad boy. I think it's really he's just giving up.
the more emo I get, the weaker.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of things. I think part of it is like that's the end of the path, but then there's still some effect of like Edric muddying things too, right? Like we're like there's a lot of things that are playing into that sort of lack of clarity for him.
Is that Flower?
That's Flower barking.
Aww.
Yeah.
The rest of the chapter seems to be a lot of just Paul and Chani going, is that Duncan or is that not? And he's like, he's somewhere in there. Like, I feel it. I'm gonna bring my bro out one way or another.
Yeah, but then at the same time, it's like he knows that there's intent there that's malicious.
Yeah.
And Chani's like, beloved, I'm not going to ask you what you've seen. I only know I'm going to give you the air you want.
Yeah.
And
he's like,
He's like, fuck.
But that means.
And then she's like, I'm hungry. The medics tell me I must eat 3 or 4 times what I ate before. I'm frightened, beloved. It goes too fast. He goes too fast. He agreed. This fetus knows the necessity for speed.
Mm-hmm.
Which we'll find out later. Paul's vision is a little off.
Just a little bit.
Where even he's surprised going, oh, so I got a twofer.
Spoilers.
Look at that. I am the Kwisatz Haderach.
Yeah.
The next chapter is starts out with the audacious nature of Muad'Dib's actions may be seen in the fact that he knew from the beginning whither he was bound, yet not once did he step aside from the path. Mm-hmm. Put it clearly when he said, I tell you that I come now to my time of testing when it will be shown that I am the ultimate servant. Thus he weaves all into one, that both friend and foe may worship him. It is for this reason, and this reason only, that his apostle prayed, Lord, save us from the other paths which Muad'Dib covered with the waters of his life. Those other paths may be imagined only with the deepest revulsion.
See, this is where like it gets a little bit confusing, because Paul didn't want apostles. Like he specifically says, like,
he didn't want the jihad.
No. Yeah. Right. And so for them to like say that he has apostles and all this, like to me that feels like, is it an unreliable narrator?
Well, and also like I mean that's
100%. Yeah, like
you mean like the excerpt specifically, or just the whole book?
The excerpt.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
definitely.
It's people writing on what they think.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's what I imagine. I guess what people would interpret the Devil in the White City author probably wrote about the first serial killer.
Oh yeah, H.H. Holmes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great book, by the way.
Great book. That's a great book. Yeah, I love that book.
So this chapter, which surprise, we're almost at 2 hours and we're just finally getting to the end. This is how much nerds we are about this book.
Yeah.
It's much richer even than I kind of thought when I was reading it. I was like, oh, it kind of zooms to this part, but really there's a lot going on to unpack.
It very much is. Like, there's a lot weaved into this that if you gloss over, you can ignore, but at the same time, when you start thinking about it, there's a lot to unpack. And I'm going to give him a lot of credit on this. I know people like hammered this book saying, well, this sucked. This wasn't Dune. Of course it's not Dune. It's a shorter book.
There's no sandworms.
No, none.
No.
0 sandworms.
So,
1 thopter.
But did it flap?
Better fucking flap.
Yeah.
Can I tell you, just not to my digression is I did try to watch the miniseries. And part of the reason I was out was because I was watching it like probably not a totally legal stream on YouTube. Don't Bezos me.
We watched it when we did our review.
Yeah. But then I was like, the second a thopter showed up, and I was like, "Where's the fucking flapping wings?" And I'm like, I'm out of here. And I just I threw down and I walked out of the room.
That's like exactly where I was when I watched the trailer for the new movie. I was like, those thopters better fucking flap.
They better thopt, or they're not.
I will
Thought
riot.
or not?
Which,
Yeah.
by the way, our last trailer review is over 350 views.
Yeah.
300.
It's fucking
work.
insane. Like, literally, we're just like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Subtle knife.
I mean, I can't see
Hell
how
yeah.
this movie fails. I really, with the
Oh.
actors involved, like,
Yeah.
although I've seen reviews where like, well, this isn't like a Marvel movie. I was like, no, of course it's not like a fucking Marvel movie.
It's more like Star Wars.
For goth.
Did it miss its chance because it's too much like Star Wars and people are like, oh my god.
I'd actually say the intrigue puts it closer to Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the vibe of it for sure, yeah. And the
100%.
weirdness factor of like,
if only Lucy Lawless was in it playing like
Oh.
Hera.
yeah, love it.
I'd be down for her just going to regular person. Your rugs are dirty. Clean this shit up.
Filthy rugs.
Because boy, in Spartacus, Lucy Lawless was like, she got it still. So in this, the messenger, the young woman, her face, name, and family known to Chani.
Yeah, here we go.
How she penetrated Imperial security.
I love this part.
Like, she gets to meet with Paul because Chani knew her family and her father was one of his Fadakin.
Yeah.
And she comes with this message, like she has to give this message to Paul from her father.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Paul, like, 100% like, I'm seeing this, it's good, but it's not that good.
And he's like, it's so good, but it's off just by a little bit. Like, he mentions that this woman who's walking in, this girl, like her shoulders are off just a little bit, like a fraction.
Very muscular.
And that like there's whoever did it's doing a really good job, and he basically knows that it's Scytale.
Yeah, he like knows it's Scytale, but doesn't. Yeah,
well, doesn't know it's Scytale. It just knows it's a face dancer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's I was talking about that too. How it's like going back to the whole like there's no everything's out in the open, and the real like journey is just how do we deal with this. And I do love the whole like let's dispense with this being a surprise. It's just
and the answers that she's giving are like he's like okay, there are Fremen involved. These are very specific answers. So it's basically like, oh, my father wants to see you, blah, blah, blah. Like, I am Othian's Lichna of Burk Aldib.
Yeah.
The girl's voice came out small but firm, giving name, father, and pedigree. Paul nodded. This is how Chani had been fooled. The timbre of her voice, everything reproduced with exactitude.
Yeah. Because again, he's kind of dunking on Chani there, right? Like a little bit, like just
a little bit. And he's like, oh, well, rest in my home, daughter of Othium. You're welcome as water after a dry crossing.
Gotta love those sayings.
Oh, very much so. And then Scytale's like, I am the smoke which banishes sleep in the night, which means I bear bad tidings.
Yeah, right.
And again, like
that's like a secret message, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's like, give me your message. The innocents do not believe in evil, she said. Well done, Paul thought. It was what the real Lichna would have said. He felt a momentary pang for the real daughter of Othian.
Well, and isn't going back to I think it was in maybe one of the earlier chapters, or maybe it was the beginning of the chapter we started with, but there's a comment about like, but no Fremen woman was reported missing, right?
Yes.
And so, part of me is like, is Paul actually is like this like the combination of like him understanding that plus all these little subtle things that she's doing just that they're just a little off, or is it just like he was kind of expecting this? You know what I mean? Like
Paul even starts challenging her and he's like, she's like, I was told to deliver my message in secret. He's like, and Banerjee was like, why? Because it's my father's wish. Paul's like, this is my friend. Am I not a Fremen? Then my friend may hear anything I hear. And Scytale's like getting pissed off and like barely composing the girl shape still.
Right.
And
what he's like, is this a trap? Is that what we're supposed to know? That
like, the emperor may make his own rules. This is the message my father wishes you to come to him, bringing Chani.
Yeah.
Well, why do I need to? She is your woman and a Sayadina, which, again, bringing that up.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, well,
That old
tell you
chestnut.
what, I'll send Hera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take that.
Like, and what was the?
It does kind of feel like when you see Cytail, like it's all for the quiz, and then you're like, oh shit, there were like 10 chapters I missed.
Yeah.
You know, like a oops.
And he's like, oh yeah, Chani's pregnant. She's not traveling anywhere. And Cytail's like, fuck.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Like that throws it all off.
Yeah, like what's even the point now? Except for your own. But then he does get into his own, like, oh, there always has to be a way out. Like he goes back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Which is a very big thing in the early chapters, that the Taelaxu will always give you a way out of their trap.
Yeah, they're like Batman villains, right?
Ooh.
They're like, you could have killed Batman like 17 times, but you're like obsessed with, you know, pies or some stupid thing. Like,
Or he's got to like tell him the whole plan.
Yeah,
exactly.
And, like, keeps going, well, let me ask Chani to decide this. And Paul's like, I've decided you will accompany me in Chani's stead. It requires a Sayadina of the right. Are you not Chani's friend?
And
Box, Cytail thought. Does he suspect? No.
Yeah, he's like, oh,
he's
God.
like, no, I've got to stay here. Like, I need to be under protection.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll take Stilgar's wife, Hera. You'll tell us the way to your father. Well, how do you know you can trust Stilgar's wife? I know it, but I don't. And Paul's like, does your mother live? My true mother has gone to Shai Halu. My second mother still lives and cares for my father. Why? She's of Siege Tabar. Yes, I remember her. She will serve in Chani's place.
Boom. Do your homework, Cytail.
Yeah.
Like, literally.
You can't get a D- on this one. You gotta like.
Cytail's like gonna go back and just start punching Edric in the fucking face in the tank. Like,
yeah, I know. You feel like he's just gotta be pissed. But again, he's really just trying to sell Golas. Like, that's ultimately his plan.
And I'm just like,
that's his
poor
retirement.
Hera.
Yeah.
Hera's just used left and right.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this whole. Again, it's kind of like one of those verbal sparring matches that you have in this book, where it's like
that's all this book is.
Two people, just these back and forths with a couple people that think they're smarter than the other person, and then you find out who is, and who isn't. Yeah.
This chapter, Paul gets to see one of Alia's little courtyard congregations.
Yeah.
Hey guys, sorry, I've got to get going. I'm really sorry.
Oh no.
Okay. We went real late on that.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Sorry.
All right.
Bye guys.
No problem. Bye.
Okay, we'll finish it out.
Okay. So, like, literally, Alia is doing like community theater with her whole show that she's putting on.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like an evangelical, like one of those, like a 700 Club or something, like, right? That people
like
are
Billy
like,
Graham. Yeah.
It's
the only thing missing is like them putting out something collecting water from people.
Yeah, exactly. Right. This was a part too where I thought, when I, again, thinking about inversions of the first book, this takes place almost at the exact same like place in the book that the orgy from the first book takes place.
Yes.
And it's a very similar kind of moment because you see Aaliyah kind of becoming. So in the first book, that's where Jessica sort of becomes a part of the Fremen, right? She joins. But here, it's kind of like, not that it's already sort of happened, but
Aaliyah
you see
made it her holy place.
Yeah, exactly. She's sort of kind of moving above everybody. She's becoming a god. Like, she's not like, she's not joining, but like ruling, basically, or it's the beginning of that kind of a thing.
This is where I started saying she's like a cult of personality, and
Yeah.
like I purposely put that Living Color song "Cult of Personality" when I
Totally.
people are screaming "Alia, Alia, Alia," and they start chanting, "She stills all storms, her eyes kill our enemies and torment the unbelievers. From the spires of Tuano Where dawn light strikes and clear water runs, you see her shadow. In the shining summer heat, she serves us bread and milk, cool fragrant with spices. Her eyes melt our enemies, torment our oppressors, and pierce all mysteries. She is Alia, Alia, Alia.
Yeah.
And
it's the one guy that's just like, will my business succeed?
Yes. And Paul is like 100% disturbed by the whole act.
Oh yeah, it's very disturbing. Yeah.
And this is him on his way. He's meeting his guide to go to where Othium is, which, spoiler, doesn't work out very well.
It does not work out well at all.
And like a woman near Paul muttered, she is in a fierce mood tonight. Have you ever seen her this angry? And Paul's like, she knows I'm out here. Did she see something in the visions that angered her? Is she raging at me? And it's interesting because, again, it's the deifying of people who probably should not be deified.
Right.
And they're all very flawed characters. Paul kind of, he rose to power out of vengeance, I guess we'd call it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think his whole taking up of the mantle of, the Kwisatz Haderach and like embracing that at all is just to like avenge his father. Yeah.
Alia is hubris, I guess.
She knows how special she is.
She's been called an abomination her whole life. She's been an adult since she was a child.
Yeah.
There's so many like philosophical paths you could go with this.
Totally.
And it's where I kind of give Herbert his credit, and also I think it's a weakness of the book. Where he gets so deep that at times it muddies everything else, and maybe that's the whole point of it, to get you in Paul's feet, where he's seeing everything and nothing.
Right.
He's just got this one path he can go down, and that's all he can see.
Yeah, I do wonder sometimes about like what if, this book was just, the fourth or fifth act of the first book, like make it like 1,000 pages and bring this story into it, because it'd be this arc of like, he ascends, and that's kind of like this ending that Herbert shaped of like Paul winning
12-year jump.
Yeah, and then you have another jump, which you do have a jump, in the middle of the book too, right?
Which
you have like
Children of Dune has.
Children is probably
I want to say another like 12 year jump.
Yeah, something like that. But like, does that make a complete, you get the ascent and then the decline, and then you're kind of left to go into the next. And not that it would be better or worse, but it is interesting that it's so connected to his idea, whereas like in the first book you don't see it as obviously. You see someone win, and then you're like, oh, he's the hero. But then when you examine it, you realize, oh, maybe that's a scary thing. And then this is examining why it's scary.
I think that was one of the things we talked about in the last episode of season 1 is Paul really a hero?
Right. Yeah. And I think he's probably not supposed to be. And I'm really curious about, I didn't see the Lynch Dune episode you did. I didn't, but in that movie, they seemed the movie, and that's not Lynch's, that movie was taken away from Lynch, so who knows what Lynch would have done. But like, it felt like they're just like, oh yeah, you made it rain, cool, woo, and he did it.
Yeah.
But it's not supposed to be that way. The way Herbert, I think, thinks about this character.
And I think it was more of like, I hate to go to like Dark Knight, but
yeah,
you're a hero so long until you become the villain.
Exactly, right.
And he became the villain of his own story because he knew the whole time it was going to hit the jihad, which he never wanted, but he knew was inevitable.
Yeah, but he still did. Yeah, he still did everything to make it come about, even though he knew that
and the bad. More it went on, the more it just weighed on him, where he started, I guess, thinking his own demise. Like, the only way to end this is to end me. Which, I mean, you could go on a whole philosophical debate of, like, where Paul is mentally during this.
Yeah.
Only Frank Herbert would know mentally where Paul's supposed to be.
Right. I think too you can kind of go into like this is a much older Paul, right? Because so in Dune, you have a child
20,
becoming slightly
he's
less of a
28.
child.
I'd say he's 28 at this point, 30 almost.
Yeah, so here
Jesus age almost.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like an adult here, but in the first book, like it's also a question of like, you give this power to like basically a child and then just a teenager into like an early adult-ish, like I don't know if I didn't make great decisions when I was 20, like I don't know if I should be running a galactic jihad. I probably wouldn't go so great.
It's also the thing, like I had Gambit tattooed on me. I got the sandworm, and I have infected with terrible purpose.
Yeah, right.
Which was one of the lines that in the first book is used a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul constantly keeps harping on, I'm meant to do terrible things.
Right. But he just kind of resigns himself to that too, which is just such a...
And I don't know if it's because he saw the alternative of what could have happened, because when we go on to God Emperor of Dune,
mm-hmm.
Leto the second does, or I guess technically the third, because the other one was murdered in the...
Well, he's still Leto the second, right? But the baby that dies off screen in Dune is like was going to be named Leto the...
But so Leto, the God Emperor, does insanely horrible things.
Mm.
He basically makes humanity stagnate.
Oh.
By completely removing spice from everyone. Yeah. And causes the second scattering.
Mm.
Which was humanity saying, like, I need to expand. I need to get out from under the thumb of this.
Yeah.
And that was his way of stopping stagnation. And
Dune is deep.
Dune, the philosophy, the politics behind it.
Yeah. And
again, this was a lot having to do with John F. Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, Frank Herbert really hated John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's more to it. I haven't read Road to Dune. I have it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for, when you're living through history versus when you can look back on it, right? So, someone in that moment wouldn't have thought of him the same way that maybe retrospectively, and not that he's like totally wrong. There's probably still concerns that are correct. Like the concerns are correct, whether or not you're always aiming those concerns at the right people maybe aren't correct. But
well, even thinking about now what we're living in with the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like what's 20 years from now people going to say?
Yeah, they're looking
back on it. Like it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you'll see art that's reflecting it now, and then you'll maybe like look at that art in 20 years and be like, interesting. That was their takeaway from that moment.
Yeah. So the next episode we will be finishing the book. It's a little bit more than 100 pages, but it's doable.
Totally.
So that will be starting on the Order in Council, the Emperor of Paul Muad'Dib, and go to, in my copy, to 336. There's also an epilogue. It's called The Gola's Hymn.
Yes.
I'm sure it's going to be very interesting.
It'll be interesting.
Kind of feel like Paul has his Jesus Christ moment in this.
I think that's fair to say, yeah.
And again, like the religious background where Paul became a religious figure, I get it, because maybe that was Frank Herbert trying to say that, yes, Jesus was a real person that became more than he was.
Because of other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it starts evolving past the white savior theory and going into the deity myth legend. Boy, it even feels weird saying that, but the more I read this, the more I kind of start reading into a lot of legends, I guess would be the word. And it's going to be interesting to dive into. I don't know when season 3 will start because apparently there's only 3 of us really committed to doing this at this point. But thank you so much for doing this with us, Scott, and staying on for 2 hours. Because
it's fun. I love talking about this book.
I haven't read this in 25 years.
Oh wow, yeah.
So I read it a long time ago, and I hadn't touched it since. And it's weird how much I'm picking up now versus what I picked up then, because there's a lot I wrote off just not thinking about, and now looking at the current state of the world.
Oh yeah.
And then going, wow, this is really weirdly odd to read this and what's going on now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, anybody watching this, feel free to message or comment and let us know if there's anything you have questions about or looking to. I will say, if you really want to go further, the Children of Dune TV movie meshes together Children of Dune and Dune Messiah together into one movie, and someone was nice enough to upload it illegally onto YouTube. And James McAvoy is playing Leto the Second.
That's right, James McAvoy. My wife is very excited about that fact.
Also, the woman playing Alia, way too old to be playing Alia. Is
like Helen Mirren or something.
No, not Helen Mirren. Daniela. I can't remember her last name. She's fucking stunning. Not copper hair.
Well, you know, can't get
everything. Susan Sarandon plays the Carino.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So they got some like talent in.
Yeah, they got some names. And isn't John Hurt in the first one, the original one?
And Alice Krieg, the Borg Queen, is playing Lady Jessica.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, it's worth watching. It fills in a lot of blanks. Also, Quinn's
Thopters don't thop though.
Quinn's Ideas does book by book the greatest breakdowns of the books. So if you really don't want to read the book but get a good gist of what's in there, go ahead and check out his stuff. I'd love to get him on as a guest at some point. Probably won't happen because he has a very successful YouTube channel and this is kind of middling. So thank you everybody for watching and staying with us, and it's great to have you all here listening to us rant about Dune because I just love this series and look forward to a very detailed review of the movie.
Yes.
So thank you, and that'll be 2 weeks. We'll be back with the end of this book.
Very sad.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Take care.